I think we can start. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the YEPA, our sixth webinar online in this long journey for the studying, the analysis, and the way to best promote youth entrepreneurship. Today's topic is youth entrepreneurship policy design and delivery. And it will be our last meeting in line before we meet in person in October. And please register to this event if you didn't do it so far. And I directly pass the floor to my head of unit here at the European Commission. You, of course, well know that this initiative is an OECD European Commission one. And Brigitte Fellahi-Brognaud is leading the unit dealing with inclusive and social entrepreneurship. Brigitte, over to you for some words of introduction.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Julien. And indeed, happy to be back with you for this last series of our workshops about whose aim was really to try and design better together policies for youth entrepreneurship. So we went through a series of modules, dedicated topics, which you had identified as being being addressed. And now we are getting close to the end and trying a bit to wrap up on really what are the lessons learned to have a good design of policy and also good implementation. It's really my pleasure to be with you today. And at this stage, what we saw, we expected was a quite diverse approach across member states. And that's why it's also very, very important to get this mutual understanding and also better understanding to be able to better customize then policies depending on your place and your constraints and your also strengths and resources. The scope of measures that can be used is quite wide. Financial support, obviously, because access to finance is always and ever a recurring obstacle that pops up first, but also training programs, support to the whole ecosystem, having a legal, favorable environment.
All good here, just as usual.
Sorry, if
you pulled in several directions.
Tom Cooney, please, if you could mute yourself, thank you. And everybody, please, if you can make sure you mute yourself, otherwise it interferes with the presentations and discussions. Thanks a lot. So as I was saying, there's quite a wide range of possible tools. And our lessons learned also at this stage is that even though the goodwill is always here and really there is willingness to support youth entrepreneurship, but there are still challenges at the implementation stage. And that's why this last block of discussions on the really good design to promote good implementation is really key. Some common pitfalls we have come across along our discussions were known and are well documented, like a misalignment between the policy goals and the real-world needs, especially of young entrepreneurs, fragmented delivery systems, lack of coordination, lack of clear objectives. These are somehow all relate to the basic components you should have for having a good policy, which is having a strategy, mobilizing the resources, having a good governance in place, a good communication dimension, and then monitoring. And somehow today we a bit rely on this monitoring and evaluation, start from the end, but you have to have it from the start, indeed. Drawing lessons from already the experiences and policies we saw in the various member states and regions to really try to identify how to set up robust and coherent policies. So I would like just to quote here a few critical factors, and we will have time to discuss them more in depth today. First, start with well-defined objectives, and it's very important. Even, if we just consider youth entrepreneurship, you might have several various objectives here, and it might depend on the subgroups we have as target groups as well. Then, of course, you should have the resources available, which means ensuring access to finance, but it's not enough. We also talk about human resources, having support services, and all these things, and it should be flexible enough as well to be able to reprioritize when needed. Across all stages, we need to have collaboration between stakeholders, and it's very important, especially in that area, that we have the input and contribution from start of young entrepreneurs themselves, and those I would say specialized in supporting them to make sure that the design is really fit for purpose. And then we need to develop effective working methods. And as we discussed during our last workshops, very important probably is also the cultural dimension, and make sure we develop more entrepreneurial mindsets and related skills among the young people. And that starts with education, including early education, but it goes throughout, and it's a lifelong endeavor. So in a nutshell, I mean, entrepreneurship policies, they are a subset of youth entrepreneurship policies, are a subset of entrepreneurship policies. But as we have been discussing over the last 2 years, young entrepreneurs have specific challenges as well. So it's very important to be able to address them through adequate policies to make sure they have the right skills, the right networks, and the access to finance, which are almost their most difficult challenges usually. So today we will again discuss best practices. So thanks to all those who will present what they have done, and also share what maybe we could still improve on that. What seems to be important is to have integrated support packages, and really to foster collaboration across the ecosystem, and today also at EU level across member states. So that's really how we think we could help devise better. And as already Julia mentioned, so this is our last workshop before we have the closure event in person again in October in Brussels, where we will be able really to try to draw the lessons and recommendations for policymakers to have good and effective youth entrepreneurship policies. And I hope to see you there all. Thanks a lot. I'm really looking to our discussions today, and now pass the floor to Dr. Jonathan Posser from the OECD.
Yes, hello everybody. Great to have you here today. I hope we have a good discussion and learning today. You know about the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Academy. It's been running for 2.5 years, and we've been building a community which you are part of. You're group 2 of the community, of course, and dialogue amongst yourselves and with us, and a sounding board for policymakers to hear from youth entrepreneurship policy networks or youth entrepreneurship networks, you know, to hear the views of the youth entrepreneurs via the youth entrepreneurship networks to the design of policy by policymakers. So you know that we've done a lot of different topics which you asked us to cover. We surveyed and asked for your views on what would be the best topics. We did entrepreneurial skills development at one point, which might come back today, access to finance, of course, innovation, more inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems. So that's what's been going on. And today's agenda, of course, we're going to talk about policy design and delivery. And so we'll have a presentation on that and a panel discussion about the issues. There are a number of discussion questions in the agenda that you could think about yourselves. There's an opportunity for a brief networking session. You see who you get in your networking session after the coffee break. We'll talk about evaluation at the end with a presentation from Petra about evaluation. So clearly, evaluation is right at the heart of good policy design and delivery. And essentially what we're trying to do is put in place a sort of trial and test system where we think about the different policy design options that we have, and we put them into action, potentially as pilots, and we monitor and evaluate the impact, and redesign in a continuing policy cycle. So Brigitte talked about some of the things that we need to get right and can adjust. For example, tailoring the service offered to the needs of the client, listening to the needs of the client about what works for them, consulting with the stakeholders, the program managers, the third-party agents you might want to work with. A big issue is targeting, getting the right people who will benefit onto the programs. So looking forward to the discussion today. It is the last workshop of the series. So we'll take a bit of time at the very end to reflect on your view. Would be some key takeaway messages of YAPA, and what message would we want to communicate from YAPA to policymakers and other stakeholders, and come to the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Summit in Brussels on the 6th and 7th of October. And if you're lacking information on that, then get hold of us and we'll get you into the loop. So now I pass the floor to Werner Hirne of the STW Economy, Employment and Research from Wallonia.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. So hello, everybody. As said, I'm Werner Hirne, the External Relations Manager of the Social Economy Unit of the Walloon region. And first of all, I would like to thank the OECD and the Commission for the opportunity to co-host this event. So for the Walloon region, effectively designing and delivering entrepreneurship policies and programs to young people is of tremendous importance. In fact, the unpredictable world we are living in requires young people to be best prepared for it. And developing social entrepreneurial skills is therefore a necessity for the development. In Wallonia, we are dedicated to developing entrepreneurial skills within the social economy ecosystem. And under the framework of the Alternative Wallonia strategy, developing young entrepreneurial skills and awareness was one of the 30 flagship actions undertaken under our regional strategy. And under this framework, there was a pilot project which was called Génération Entreprendre, which can literally be translated into Generation Entrepreneurship. So it was put in place, and this project was led by Wallonie Entreprendre. So it's the economic and financial tool of the Walloon region to help enterprises and companies to develop themselves. And in addition to Wallonie Entreprendre, it was also led together with our social economy incubator, YES. This pilot project aimed at raising awareness among young people to social economy entrepreneurship, and it succeeded in reaching almost 4,000 young people. These youths have been made aware in high schools through mini enterprises, workshops, and events, and in university through an innovation camp and the funding of university shares in social economy. Regarding the innovation camp, the objective was to encourage students to develop innovative and sustainable solutions for real-world problems posed by social economy enterprises. So it was a win-win situation, both for the enterprises and for the students. Additionally, and I think it's quite important to underline this, high school teachers have also been made aware of social economy entrepreneurship, so they can inform the students on this matter, because, students go, but the teachers remain. So we think it's quite important regarding these aspects. And finally, we are currently, the Walloon region is currently part of a technical support instrument of the European Commission, together with France, Portugal, Greece, and Croatia, with the objective to develop a new regional strategy for social economy. And in this new strategy, we will include the rising of awareness of youth to social economy entrepreneurship as a transversal aspect of the strategy. So this will be driven by the social economy incubator, YES. He has a key role in this policy. And hence, I think we can conclude that young entrepreneurship is recognized as a key policy in Wallonia, and we are quite willing to collaborate with the YEPA network and the Commission to develop this policy together. I think that's all on my part. Maybe I will give the floor back to Helen, right?
Yes, thank you. Thank you again to Belgium and Wallonia for hosting today's workshop. We're excited to get started. We got a great agenda ahead. So before I launch into the next presentation, we're going to look at session 1 as a whole, which is the case for youth entrepreneurship. So we'll hear from Fernando on building the why behind youth entrepreneurship policy and why it's important. And then we're going to hear from policymakers from across the EU and OECD countries on how they're approaching designing and delivering youth entrepreneurship policy. So without further ado, I will now pass the floor to Fernando to hear more about the why.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thanks very much for inviting me. Just trying to get the tech working. Just hold with me a second just to share the slides. Share screen. Cool. Can you just confirm that you're able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see it. It's working.
Cool. So very nice to meet everyone. I am Fernando. I'm here representing 351, the Portuguese Startup Association. I love developing ecosystem, and I also being around other projects, such as I am sales manager at Startup Genome, and I'm trying to bring Techstars back to Portugal. The way that I thought about the session, I'm just going to do a really quick overview about 351 startups, so you understand why I'm talking about the subject. Then going through, okay, how we as 351 startups developed a startup ecosystem through policies and program design, and the Q&A will be after the panel, not after this session, but after the panel. My challenge is to condense all the content in 15 minutes, so bear with me. I will speak a little bit fast in order to achieve that goal. So 351 Portuguese Startup Association actually started as a Facebook group. We were 12,000 founders that were super engaged on developing a startup ecosystem. So we start coming together, organizing the first Ask Me Anything, trying to support other startup founders. We start organizing co-working sessions, and 6 years from that time, we become the largest structure to support startup founders in Portugal. Today, we are non-for-profit. Just for you to have an idea of our impact, last year, only 2024 alone, we were a community of 2,300 members. 70% of them are startup founders. We impacted 31,000 people only 1 year through 160 initiatives. So every second day we are doing something, and we have more than 4,000 startups who have applied to our programs. And I think that the highest impact that we had, we actually helped the European Union to shape the new startup policy, the new startup and scale-up strategy. 351 is part of the European Startup Network, and that was one of the main stakeholders who supported European Union to shape the new startup policy, which will be implemented in 27 countries. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we went from a Facebook group to supporting European Union to develop the new strategy for startup scale up to be implemented in 27 programs, 27 countries? Namely, we developed a framework that has 4 steps. And through the 15 minutes, I'm gonna try to cover all the 4 steps with some examples. So the first step is convening and converging. Then we're gonna go to mapping gaps and benchmarking, followed by creating an action plan, and finally executing and pushing for policies. Okay, dokie. So our mission as 351 is to make the Portuguese startup ecosystem the most dynamic ecosystem in the world. We want that every day, it's like the Web Summit. We want every day to be a Web Summit day, where in Portugal, during the Web Summit, you walk into a bar and you meet VCs. You turn on the TV and you see people talking about technology. There is innovation going on all around the country. But very unfortunately, this only happens in Portugal around the Web Summit. And we want this to happen throughout the year. So when we had this vision, we start convening and converging. So we got a few serial entrepreneurs that are, well known into the startup ecosystem. So these people are really built a successful venture, but we also got some ecosystem players with us, people from Startup Portugal, National Agency of Innovation, people who built iconic projects 10 years ago, more or less all those people who start building the ecosystem with us. And we tried to get together towards a vision that was, making Portugal the most dynamic ecosystem in the world. Then when we start convening and converging, we were okay, we need to map a few gaps and benchmark what are the best practices overall. So one of the things that we start realizing, we were like, okay, let's try to analyze what's the offer for entrepreneurs throughout the year. So we went through every single platform that offered programs. And one thing that we realized there was that prior to the pandemics, there were around 200 offerings a month in Lisbon for entrepreneurs. But after the pandemics, this number has dropped and we never recovered. And the second thing that we analyze is if you see in Lisbon, there were around 100 initiatives offered to founders per month. But if you see in Porto, which is the second largest city in Portugal, there is only around 10 initiatives being offered for founders throughout the month. And second tier cities like Braga, Guimarães, and any other cities, there were almost no offerings for founders and entrepreneurs. So everything was really centered in Lisbon. Another thing that we try to see is, okay, how are we doing entrepreneurship-wise? So what you're seeing on the screen, it's some data from Startup Genome. It's what it takes to build a global company in Portugal. So we deep dived in large startup databases like PitchBook, Dealroom, Crunchbase. And what we saw is, given the latest data available, Portugal only produced one startup who has managed to raise Series C, which is around 50 million. These are those startups that are actually going international and scaling, and they have high probability to become a unicorn. And what you're trying to see in this chart, it's what was the effort to build this one startup. So it all started in 2019, where 226 startups actually managed to raise seed. And then out of these 226 startups, 35 raised Series A, 7 raised Series B, and 1 raised Series C. And if you see the conversion rates here, we are well below the European average. Another thing that we thought about it is these are the startups that actually managed to go right. But the data is that 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs will fail. So to get to 226 startups that actually managed to raise some fundings, we needed to create something like 2,260 ideas, something that's not even close to a startup. So 9 out of them will fail. So we have the 226 that actually succeeded. And if you look at the pipeline of startups that are being produced in Portugal, this is the data from Startup Portugal and IDC. Portugal is only producing 1,300 startups a year, which means that we are almost half below the average just to keep what the ecosystem is currently maintaining, which means that in 5 to 6 years, we're going to have a huge pipeline problem, which means we're not creating enough companies. Therefore, there's not enough companies succeeding. Therefore, in 6 to 7 years, we're going to have a scale-up gap. We're not going to be producing those very large international companies. Another thing that we start to study is, okay, if we improve these rates here that I mentioned, what's the economical impact? So what we've done, we got the main ecosystem in Portugal, which is Lisbon, and we compared this ecosystem with similar ecosystems with the same population, with the same market size, I would say. So what you see on the screen, it's Lisbon compared to Zurich and Atlanta. So Lisbon has a population of around 570,000 people. And the ecosystem value, and this metric is the sum of all the valuations that has happened in the last 30 months, was 24.8 billion. And if you manage to get all these metrics right that I mentioned, the funnel that I lost here in the present, this funnel right, which is what happens in Zurich, the ecosystem value of Zurich, it's 42.5 billion, which means if you create the right policies and the right programs to address all those bottlenecks, the economical gain that the ecosystem may have is around 20 billion. So this is a problem that's big enough and it's worth enough to push for a policy. So, okay, now that we really convene some ecosystem leaders and we really have a strategy and a movement going, so we are not alone. This is a shared vision of all the main startup founders and also all the main ecosystem players. We had to come up with a plan. So what we done, we start shaping, and this is why 351 exists, and this is how we support the startup ecosystem. We work towards a funnel logic. So if the problem is a funnel problem, we had to create something that was like a funnel as well. So we have actions that goes from, people that never heard about entrepreneurship. How do we bring these people to start something until the other spectrum, which is, okay, I have a startup, I have a company that's not even tech, and I want to scale. How do I do it? So we start creating programs to address every single bottleneck that we found it. And this is, for instance, for every single program. So one of the initiatives that we want to bring, it's giving the Portugal Lex international networks. We don't have any large accelerator in Portugal. One of the initiatives that we defined together is to bring Techstars back to Portugal. So what's very important is for every initiative that we have, what's the expected impact? And how do we see this picture as a whole? So this is an example of the impact of one of the many initiatives that we expect. So we hope that by the fact that we have Techstars in Portugal, we impact 4,000 people, 400 startups will be created in 4 years, and 12 startups will manage to raise seed round, which is in total, this will be 2.5 million raised by startups. And this is only one of our initiatives. And what we done, we put everyone together in a room. Now we expanded the circle. So we put every single representative of the ecosystem in a room. We presented the strategy and we start convening. How do we get these things out of the paper? Do we need policies for it? Do we need articulation? Do we need money? How do we get the money? And we start engaging with every single accelerator and incubator in the country as well to make this impact not be only Lisbon, but to be throughout the country. And we start getting some national and international partners on board alongside us. So when we start pushing for policies, we start having the first programs being implemented in Portugal, and these are some of the results. We convinced Lisbon City Council to launch a community fund to make more things to happen in the city, but we also convinced a few corporates to launch a Portugal community fund, in which if people want to entrepreneur in Braga, or if people want to entrepreneur in Guimarães, they have an ecosystem. There are a lot of events, there are mentors, there are corporates. So we create a community fund to bring density to the ecosystem to places that are not actually Lisbon. So if people want to thrive, they may have all the opportunities to do so. The other thing that we also analyze is in a few ecosystems, it's really important to have role models. So for us, it was very important to have things happening all around the country. And we created something called Portugal Tech Week, where we start liaising with a lot of city councils to say, let's create tech days all around the country. And if you see what we created together, it's amazing. So in Lisbon, we create a marathon for founders, where 500 founders run 10 kilometers. We convinced the city council to give us a yellow iconic tram, and we put investors and VCs to talk about startups. In Beja, which is the south of the Portugal, we closed an airport and we put 150 aspiring entrepreneurs to talk about entrepreneurship. And the event has happened in the middle of an airport saloon, which was super cool. And this initiative, because it happens in 20 cities in Portugal and there were over than 300 events, we won the first place as the European Enterprise Promotion Awards, as being recognized as the best initiative to promote the spirit of entrepreneurship. And policy-wise, we start helping the national government to develop the accelerator and incubator strategy. And at the European state, I think our highest goal was really delivering and supporting the European Commission with the EU startup policy and hackathon. And we only got here because we follow up these steps, which is convening and converging, getting some people together, creating a strategy, understanding what are the potentials of the ecosystem, and then leading the group in order to execute what was need to be executed. So here we go. As I only had 15 minutes, I think that I managed to do in 14. So I am 1 minute below the expected outcome, and I will be open for Q&A after the fireside chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fernando. That was really interesting. And you highlighted very important themes of engaging the stakeholders and bringing people together to work towards better policy. So as Fernando mentioned, we're going to group the questions from his speech as well as from the panelists all together at the end. So write down your questions or put them in the chat so you don't forget, but we'll have time for questions in just a few minutes. So now we'll move to the panel session. So I invite Julian back, who will be moderating the panel session, to introduce our panelists.
Yes. Thank you, Ellen, with pleasure. So after the why, we have the how. How shall we design a nice policy support package for young entrepreneur? Where here at the European Commission, we try to build knowledge. We try to really see on the ground what works, what doesn't. We try to push some priorities. Sometimes we see that, okay, probably youth entrepreneurship is in that area, in that sector, could be more interesting. We try to make links with social entrepreneurship also, and with the world of microfinance, an area that we also manage here at DG Employment, the European Commission. And so I have some questions for our three panelists today. One from Belgium, from Wallonia, Frédéric Rasson. He will present himself. Then Rumen Danev from Bulgaria. And from Spain, we have a little bit of change. It's not Guzman Garcia Gonzalo Posada, but Sarah Simon. I'm sure she will be an excellent alternative. Yes, so what are the main objectives beyond your policy entrepreneurship, youth entrepreneurship programs? What were the challenge? Did you associate youth representative in order to shape these policies? And okay, do you at the end try to take lessons, draw conclusions, monitor it? It's all yours. Actually, you are closer to the ground that we are at the European Commission, even if we try sometimes even to finance a bit your activities, but you are really the actors. So I think it will be Frédéric Rasson going first. Please go ahead, Frédéric.
Hi, everybody. My name is Frédéric Rasson, and I'm the director of the Social Economy Department of the Service Public of Wallonie, Economy and Employment. So I guess I have to speak about the main objectives of our policy. Or do you want the other to present themselves?
Or we can do a quick tour of the tab. So yes, please go Sarah and then Roman. Yes.
Oh, okay. As Julian say, it's supposed to be Guzman. So I'm Sarah Simon. I'm the CEO of Youth Business Spain. But today I'm also representing the Ministry of employee and social economy today. So my speech is going to be kind of overview what we are doing in Spain in general about these youth entrepreneurship policies.
Hello, my name is Rumen Donev. I'm from Bulgarian Ministry of Labor and Social Policy. My directorate is responsible for the development of the social entrepreneurship. That's why our policy leadership decided that we have to develop and help to the young entrepreneurships. So we will have a new 2 years program which will begin from 2026, and we will put in the middle of this program the support for the youth entrepreneurship. After that, I will show you my presentation for social entrepreneurship, youth entrepreneurship, and the connection between them and our measures for support both of them.
Okay, excellent. Frédéric, back to you then.
Okay. So the main objective, or our main objective, thing is we have a social economy policy, social entrepreneurship policy. The objective of ours is to have more social economy enterprises, better social economy enterprises, and of course more customer for our social economy enterprises. Because in our mind, social economy brings us more democracy, more sovereignty, and also more social cohesion in our region. And to have more social economy in our region, the leverage is the young. Those are the entrepreneurs of tomorrow, but also the customer for tomorrow. So the youth is for us a main focus and an important leverage for policy about social entrepreneurship. So how did we deal with the objective and the young? I must say that we work on 3 levels. First one is on communication campaign about social economy, and in this communication campaign, we focus on the media dedicated to the young, to the youngest. So radio, TV, social media. With this global regional communication campaign, the focus was really on the youngest. The second thing we did is to implement a roadshow to the school to promote the social economy. This is the program that Werner was speaking about. It's called Génération Entreprenante in French. So it's entrepreneurship generation. The third tool that we use is the contact with the universities. So we had one social economy chair in the University of Liège, and what we did in the last 4 years is to have one chair in every university in South Belgium, in Wallonia, and also inter-university certificate. So all the universities in the French-speaking part, south of Belgium, are now collaborating to have social economy in their program. So we have a vast, with those 3 tools, we address our policy for the youth entrepreneurship. But also I have to speak about the last one. It's a social economy incubator in our region that was born 2 years ago. And of course, we hope that all those young people will be incubating social economy enterprises.
Hopefully. Excellent, thank you. Yeah. Seems that it's very much linked with social economy, and so communication seems also to be a big part of the program to reach the target people. Romain, your turn. I think you have a presentation. Probably you can.
Thank you. I'll try to share it.
Yes.
Can
Could
you
you?
see?
Yeah, we see it. You could try to put it in presentation mode, in slideshow, if it's possible for you. It's not always possible, but yeah, excellent. Very good. Over to you, Roman.
So, as I said, in Bulgaria, for the youth entrepreneurship, responsible institution is our Ministry of Labor and Social Policy, because we are developing from 2012, 2013, the policy for social enterprises, social entrepreneurship, etc., etc. That's why we decide that there are many similar things between social entrepreneurship and youth entrepreneurship. As you can see, we try to create some programs for support of the youth entrepreneurship. Now, in this moment, we don't have a separate program which is aimed directly to the youth people and those youth people which who decide to become entrepreneurs. But in other programs, we have some instruments to support the youth entrepreneurship. For example, this is one of those programs, because the northwest part of Bulgaria is the very poor region, poorest in European Union. That's why we decide that we have put some special efforts in this area. The program is new. It's from this year. We will see what will happen. Maybe next year we will have first results. So, just a second, please. So we have to support
Yes.
the businesses, and the program will provide support through the entire cycle, from the formation of the business idea to its initial implementation, and will provide opportunities for developing a self-employment and entrepreneurial skills, aims to encourage the creation of new jobs, which will lead the prevention of poverty and social inclusion, which is the main object of the social entrepreneurship and the social enterprises also. We will have two components of this program. Just a second. Component one, which will within which future enterprises will receive support for the development of their business ideas and their transformation into specific business plans for the implementation of the entrepreneurial activity and after registering of the new enterprise. The second component provides of grants. It's up to 20,000 Bulgarian less, which is something around 50,000 Bulgarian less, which is something around 25, 26 euros for financing the implementation of the specific business plan. And with the framework of the operation, the employment agency in Bulgaria, which this employment agency, they have offices in the major Bulgarian cities, and they can give support for the youth entrepreneurship. We will establish the 3 entrepreneurship support centers in northern Bulgaria, in 3 main cities. It's Wrocław, Vidin, and Montana, which will provide specific consultation support for starting business and their for own business in the future entrepreneurs. Under the component 2, newly registered enterprise will approve business plans with component 1, and will be provided with a grant of, as I say, 50,000 Bulgarian levs, and this is 26 euros, which will financially support the startup of the businesses and implementation of the plans of their initial stage for a period not exceeding 2 years. The target groups under component 2 will be unemployment persons, inactive persons, job seekers also, and first of all, young people. And the limit down is age of 16 years. So if you are 17 years, you can try to You can prepare your own project and try to have some money from this component too. So we have some different measures in our employment programs for young peoples. If you are in this category needs, like employment, education, or training, you can use your right to have some money from our unemployment programs. So, in the framework of the Employment Action Plan in 2024, numerous activities were implemented to promote entrepreneurship among the employment, including young people, which provide an opportunity to realize their innovative potential. According to the Employment Act, unemployed young people are encouraged to start their own business in a micro enterprise. Starting a business is supported with funds of something around 6,000 Bulgarian levs, which is around 3,000 euros. For expenses incurred in starting a self-employment business as set out in the business plan. Young entrepreneurs also receive additional monthly amounts for social and health insurance and training funds for accumulating professional qualification in the subject of the business activity or for its management. Their costs for external consulting services and or accompanying services used are also reimbursed. The measures are financed with the funds from the state budget for active labor market policy. In 2024, the last year, 130 young people took advantage for the opportunity provided to start a self-employed business. Of these 130 people, 124 people signed a contract for the payment of additional monthly amounts for paid social security contributions, and the cost for external consulting services are used from 39 people who started their own business, and they were reimbursed, of course. These people can also benefit from option for additional funds for professional qualification in the subject of activity or management under the approved business project. And additional monthly amounts can be provided immediately after starting the activity, the business activity, but not for more than 12 months. In total, funds invested from the state budget in the implementation of measures to promote entrepreneurship under Employment Promotion Act for the last year was 1,600,000 Bulgarian levs, which is something around 800,000 euros. As you can see, those money are not only for the youth entrepreneurship, but for unemployment people. Also, unemployment people, including young people, of course, who are entitled to cash benefits under the national regulations and wish to start a business activity for the production of goods and or to provide some services, individually or together, are provided with sums of money at the also from the unemployment fund after approval of business project by territorial divisions of the employment agency. Those people who have received a lump sum of money and who provide an employment under approved projects to another unemployment person without the right to cash benefits for unemployment are also provided with additional funds in the form of a credit for qualification in the subject of business activity under they are approved or they have a business project which was approved or for its management. In 2025, the implementation of measures of the Employment Promotion Act supporting entrepreneurship among unemployment persons, including young people, which are financed with funds from the state budget for active labor market policy, and this continues. You can see here, if you are interested, you can find more information at this internet page, which is from our unemployment agency.
Many thanks, Roman. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you still have some. Yeah, please go ahead.
This is the last slide. The Ministry of Labour and Social Policy is about to approve a new two-year action plan for the social and solidarity economy, where special attention will be paid to measures for youth entrepreneurship. Currently, the Ministry of Labour and Social Policy has built a network of 6 regional centers for development of the social economy. So we have regional centers in all 6 planning regions in Bulgaria, in northern and in the south part of the country. And those centers, they develop the social economy. But in their activities, we will put in the support for the youth entrepreneurship. So, according to the new action plan, youth entrepreneurship will also be included in these centers. The young entrepreneurs will be able to receive advice in their activity, relations with local authorities, which is very important for them because they have no experience in those kind of relations, labor legislation, taxation. They will also be able to benefit from the already established networks for the promotion of the social entrepreneurship, which include higher education institutes, some universities, civil organizations, and various business structures, which is most important for us. The idea is for these regional centers to be formed as business incubators, both for young and for social entrepreneurs. So it's from me, and if you have any questions, this is the right time. Just a second.
Yeah, many thanks, Roman. Yes, I'm happy to see that the upcoming strategy for social and solidarity economy that we are expecting in the Commission.
Leadership, and they are very open to those kind of ideas. And I hope that we will have their support for youth entrepreneurship. And maybe from this program, which is human resources development, we will have some money to support the young entrepreneurship.
So, except if there is a burning question now, we could probably keep the question for the end of the session and go now to Sarah for the case of Spain. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Julian. As I mentioned, it's Guzman from Ministry who's supposed to be here today. So our approach is more like an overview or reflection about how is the situation in youth entrepreneurship policies in Spain, and also a kind of reflection of this group. We didn't prepare a presentation. It's like a few resumes to have this conversation with you, and because I think it's probably the most important, this space to interchange opinions. So firstly, I would like to remind that in the paper you sent to all the JEPA group, we all could read the OECD International Convention on Entrepreneurship Policy in 2020 identifies 3 main types of youth entrepreneurship policy interventions: policies that aims to improve institutional conditions for entrepreneurship, policies that offer direct support to entrepreneurs and startups, and policies that take holistic approach and support the development of entrepreneurial ecosystem. We can say that here in Spain, we have been working on youth entrepreneurship policy, industry policy intervention for over probably 15 years or more, but without tangible structural outcome. Maybe I'm going to be a bit hard in this part, but I think we have the impression in Spain, and listen the other colleagues, not in just in this webinar, in other webinar we have participated. I think maybe in all over the European Union country, we have similar problem. It's a complex and still issue that needs a fresh and strategic approach. And of course, to Spain at least, the ministry, and for us, Youth Business Spain, and I know Ruben is also in this meeting too, JEPA could be a helpful initiative. It's true that just about 2 years ago, We start in Brussels, and we have had a lot of webinar or workshops, but now it's time to move further, to think in future. So to us in Spain, that we don't have a specific national youth entrepreneurship policy. There are general frameworks such as Spain Entrepreneur Nation and the Social Economy Strategy too, but no designed with a specific focus on youth. However, there are many initiatives at the regional level tailored to local realities, urban, rural, women's, but we have the impression that they have, yes, this kind of not coordinated initiative like with a national strategy. So and there are a special focus on this kind of social and tech entrepreneurs. It's something that came fashion in the last maybe 5, 7, 10 years, and now there are a lot of initiatives trying to promote a lot of startup, but we think there are other realities, the other kind of businesses that here in Europe, and that need an holistic approach. So we think in Spain, the more innovative initiative that the government has launched in the last 10 years, it has been thanks to the European Union support and the European Union grants. So it's very important to us in Spain if we want to continue development and if we want to go further in this youth entrepreneurship policy. All the things happen in Europe. All the things happen with the Commission and the different direction. So what have been the main objective in these policies that we implement in Spain in the last 15 years? Of course, reduce youth unemployment by promoting the employment opportunities and self-employment too. And you know that the youth unemployment is also big. It's also a high rate in Europe and especially in Spain. So that has been one of the main objectives. Also to promote an entrepreneurial culture through education and training. We have the impression also that we have improved a lot in the 10 years, including in universities, in the professional training, all this kind of policies to promote this entrepreneurial culture through education and training. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we don't have still the outcome that lets us know if that is working or not. And also the main objective has been to encourage collective entrepreneurship and the inclusion of youth and people in cooperative, and as the colleagues mentioned, all this social enterprise is a priority here in Spain. And we did a report funded by the Ministry of Employment with the Global Entrepreneurship Monitorship about the analysis of situation of the youth entrepreneurs in Spain. Was launched last year. We presented, and we are preparing the next, and we presented this year. And the numbers say that the youth people are more open to create business with others, are more open to create business in collaborative ways. So that is also important things to try to analyze and also develop. And of course, this report that we did with the Global Entrepreneurship Monitors in Spain was the first one in the world made focus on GEM information, but focus on youth, because as you all know, GEM every year has this national report, the situation of entrepreneurs in every country, but there is no one specific of youth. And we prepare one in Spain, the first one, and I think also could be a good initiative, kind of easily replicated all over the world, because GEM has this university working in this report all over the world, of course, all over Europe, and also could be a good initiative to have information about how is the situation of youth entrepreneurship in every country in Spain. And with GEM it's kind of easy because they have this data information every day. So the key challenge for us in Spain are, even if we have go further with training, often are focused only on the ideation or pre-incubation state, and we think we have to go further throughout the entire entrepreneurship journey. But we have the impression that maybe we are starting with this culture entrepreneur, but we have a long trip to do it, and also not just to this pre-phases. We also have to have supported in the entire journey to started the businesses. As you mentioned too, of course, the real access to finance. Also, mentoring has been developed, but we have had the impression it's need to go further with this mentoring, and lack of methodological diversity to include every kind of entrepreneurs, not just this graduated in high school or in university and want to start social or startups technological. And we think we have an opportunity in Spain. Many people who has self-entrepreneurship and small entrepreneurship are getting retired, and we have a problem on relevation. What is happening with these all small businesses in Spain? That is almost 1 million people, and now what is going to happen? So we have to all open our mind. I know it's very sexy to have unicorns, and everyone to want to have this magic businesses, but it's not the reality of most of our country, especially in Spain and South Europe. So we have been working on youth entrepreneurship policies, as I mentioned, but without this tangible structural outcome that with it is very neat. What is working well here in Spain, of course, with areas of improvement, the Youth Warranty Plus plan also came from Europe, which try to integrate entrepreneurship into employment training with microcredit and advisory service. Multi-stakeholder engagement in the last year, as I mentioned, entrepreneurship has become a fashion thing. So probably 10 years ago could be very difficult to identify what could be the member of JEPAN in Spain. But now there are a lot of stakeholders working in this. That is positive. So have other stakeholders working in youth entrepreneurship is positive. There are youth organization, university, business center, a lot of support organization like Youth Business Spain. So that's also we have the feeling that the ecosystem is growing. So that's good. What are our proposals from Spain? As I mentioned at the beginning, we would like to establish a dedicated national youth entrepreneurship policy framework specific for youth people with a long-term vision and a stable resource. That is also very important in all kind of policy you want to implement. And this, of course, for youth entrepreneurship too. Ensure a legal recognition of entrepreneurship support organization. And I would like to explain this a little bit. As I mentioned, there are a lot of new organizations trying to support people starting businesses, but the results are not here. We don't have a lot of youth people starting businesses. And even if there are a lot of organizations, and we created in Spain almost 1.5 years ago, an organization named Emprendes. Is the Spanish name of the organization that support people to start businesses. And we think that probably when we design policies, we are not thinking in this kind of ecosystem that is very needed. We try to go to the entrepreneurship and this mentoring and financial and events, network, but there are people, professional people that they work is supporting other started businesses. And we think in Spain is this initiative of Emprendes and also with the ministry could be interesting in Spain, and if it's in Europe, even better, to have recognition of this legal figure to stabilize with its warranty quality in the service, because sometimes there are this kind of program, but it's not as deeper as could be need or professional. So some people are starting in this kind of program, but then they don't receive the real support that they need to start and consolidate their business. So this legal figure for this support organization invest in programs that combine, as you mentioned, also the other college training, mentoring, finance, not isolated action. We have a lot of isolated action in Spain, and we need a big program to coordinate this action. So broaden the focus beyond tech startup and social venture, and also, as I mentioned, support these small and medium-sized businesses, and included evaluation, also mentioned in the first speaker part, a long-term impact monitoring with clear indication. We have this kind of data about how many people stay in the training session, how many people start businesses, but we need to go further in the evaluation and in the impact measure. What are this policy having? I think it's not just for youth entrepreneurs to be I mean, it's not a problem of the youth entrepreneurship policy. That in general in Europe we have the need to go deeper in the measure and evaluation of the policy in general. And the closest message of Spain could be something like training entrepreneurs that a skill is not enough. We have been developing for the last year. Young people need a full ecosystem. Public policy must act as a bridge between the intention to create, that is also difficult, to create this intention in the youth people in Europe and especially in Spain, but also go and the real possibility of doing. So this could be our closing message in Spain, and I don't think it's on time, but we are done with our message from Spain.
Many thanks, Saria. Many thanks for the enthusiasm you and your country show in this field. It's really impressive and energizing. So I have a couple of questions for you, but I would also like to open the floor to possible questions, be it on youth entrepreneurship design in general or to specific situation in Wallonia, Bulgaria, or in Spain. So, okay, I will go for my questions, but don't hesitate to raise your hand. Yes, I listened to your three expose, of course. I see so many nice things ongoing. I would like a very classical questions to ask you a bit about financing. How do you finance this? I had elements. Apparently, EU money is very welcome, and we are pleased to see that EU money plays a role. Do you have other sources of money, be it national or even philanthropy? I don't know. And do you see it continuing for the 2, 3, 5 years at least? So that there is some stability, or can it be cut off from one day to the other? That would be a drama, of course, but it's sometimes possible. And also the second question I had is, it was here and there in your presentation, the early phase of youth entrepreneurship is important, but the phase just after starting is also very important. Is this something you have in mind, to provide administrative support, probably not so much financial support, but okay, the real thing starts after the birth of the company. Are your program also taking that into account, like the medium term support of youth entrepreneur, or once they are in the nature, it's not your business anymore? So two questions that I have, but also the audience, please don't hesitate to raise your hand once you have something in mind. Yeah, Frederic, please go ahead.
Yes. For my directorate, the money comes directly from the social economy program in the Walloon budget.
Okay.
So it's a luck and also something difficult, because it's 100% money for social economy, but it's not money from labor or from Minister of Economy. So the social economy has to grow by himself
Okay.
in our region. It's a luck because we have a budget. We have last year it was 37 million to grow the social economy in our region. But also it's kind of difficult because every time you want to make a program, you have to bring your own money, and you cannot be part of the program the others if you can't bring this money. This is for the first question. And the second question about what's next when we have social enterprises. In Wallonie, we have a public financial tool to help the social economy companies, especially for the cooperatives.
Okay.
It's the help come from loan, but also grants. Not grants, participation in capital, in the capital of the company. But as we are in social economy, this participation in the capital cannot exceed 50% of the capital of the company, of course, because it's one of the four principles of social economy, autonomous gestion.
Yeah,
But
independence.
we have this tool that exists. And I must say that it will be challenging for for next year, because since I work in the Social Economy Directorate, I work there since 2012. It's the first time that the Minister of Social Economy is not the Minister of Economy or the Minister of Employment. We have the Minister of the Health and Environment. So it will be challenging because we don't have the direct link that we could have in the past. So we will see how it will happen. But we also know that in the public government declaration that set up the legislature, they said that the social economy will be well enforced sector. So
Yeah.
I will see what
You
will
are
be
half positive.
Yes.
Sarah, woman as well. Do you have anything to add? Yeah.
Well, yes, I think about finance, that is one of the main points to develop the ecosystem. As you mentioned, Frederick, there are this kind of initiative to fund the startup, like seed capital. We have a lot of these to this big, not big company, but I mean this is new company that with ambitious, like 1 million, 2 million, and they need investor, but this is not real, like starting or development ecosystem. So there are also microbanks in Spain or Laboral Cucha, there are finance, but for the youth people, it's very, very difficult to access to finance if they don't have a familiar supported, because they don't have guarantees, they don't have properties, they don't have anything that support their credit. So, and also there are initiatives to provide microcredits, but I think it's a big challenge. And also the public policy, when they try to, we have kind of program with this guarantee program I mentioned, is if a youth people start a business, they receive 10,000 euros. But what happened with this, that they don't receive the support to start the business, or most of them close it after the 5 years. So we are giving money to the people to start businesses, but we are not providing the support to consolidate business. So it's need to fund program that involve this holistic approach, the money and the support, with guarantees that this support is going to be with quality to success of the business.
Frederick, you wanted to add
I
something?
forgot to say, of course, we also are involved in the European social funds that we can use, but it's not always only focused on the youth. It's why I didn't respond about that. But we use the European Social Fund for the formation for social economy and entrepreneurs, of course, but also for the people that are unemployed. And of course, in Wallonie, the focus is on mainly on the people that are younger than 26. But this is a tool that we can use with the EU, of course.
Okay. Rumen, about to you. And in your country, Rumen, is there a specific role of microfinance institutions in order to help a young entrepreneur to set up their business?
As we don't have a special framework for the support of the youth entrepreneurship, it's quite difficult to have some money for that support. But we are lucky that we are in the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy, and we can use the unemployment programs for support of the youth entrepreneurship. And in this year, this is just like that. We use the unemployment programs to support those young people which like to be entrepreneurs. But from the next year, maybe in the middle of the next year, we are planning to have some money from the Human Resources Development Program, and maybe we will have much more money than this year. And we use money from the recovery plan for Bulgarian recovery plan. And with this money, we built the network for support of the social enterprise. But we have 6 regional offices you saw, and in these regional offices, we have people with experience. And every regional office has a local network in his area, which we will use for to support the youth entrepreneurship. And this is from the state financing, from the Bulgarian government. But most of all, we will try to create supporting centers in these regional offices, which will include some people from the academia, from a real enterprise, from the business, some people which will give the advices to the young people. So for the next or from 2027, we will build an whole ecosystem for the young entrepreneurship. We will try to have some money via the European programs, Human Resources Development Program. We have the infrastructure for support, local infrastructure for supporting, and we will try to put in this infrastructure different stakeholders, for example, local business, local authorities, local universities. So I think that the youth people will have much more support after 2 years than this year. And this is our viewing time. Maybe after 2 or 3 years, we will have everything for support, but most of all, we will have a framework for supporting of the youth entrepreneurship.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. I turn now to the audience, but the audience seems to be satisfied or silent. I don't know. Please take advantage of having three policymakers close to the ground and in contact with actually what youth demands, what's youth hopes, and what youth tries to achieve. Fascinating area, I must say. No questions. If we don't have any more questions, then I guess that for once we will be able to have a break sooner than anticipated, which is welcome in the end.
Wonderful. Yes. Well, again, if you have any questions that come up for either Fernando or any of the 3 panelists, you're welcome to put it in the chat, and maybe they can pick that up later. But as Julian said, we can now head to our break. So we'll come back in 10 minutes for a networking session. So that's just a time for you to be able to chat with other YEPA participants and just have an informal moment before we start on our session 2. So let's come back at 11:32. And we'll see you then.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the networking session. Time to just interact and get to know other YEPA participants a bit better. I think people are still making their way back to the main room. We'll give them just a few more moments. Wonderful. Okay, well, we have an exciting second half of the YEPA workshop today. So the session 2 is going to dive deeper into the role of evaluation and how it should be built in to policy and program design and delivery from the outset. And then we're going to turn to future thinking and reflection on what YEPA has achieved and what we've done together over the last 2.5 years, and a session dedicated to the YEPA legacy. So I will now introduce our next speaker, who is Petra, who will be talking about evaluating youth entrepreneurship policies and programs. So over to you, Petra.
Hi, everyone, and thank you very much, first for the invitation, and also second for this opportunity to exchange. And I was working in this field for some time, and I got this idea to share some experience about how to run an evaluation project. I'm a bit hesitating with talking because it's multitasking, and with the Zoom, I'm not so familiar, but I hope that you can see now my presentation in the meantime, right?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, my name is Petra. I'm coming from Budapest, very literally from the Budapest Institute, which is a public policy research institute. And actually, we have been doing a lot of program evaluations, not just in the field of inclusive entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship, but across different policy areas. And yes, I'm really pleased to be here because I can say I am old enough to have enough lessons and experiences to share. And this will be also the topic of my presentation today. I will be very short because it's Friday. I really appreciate your attention and time that you are still here. And first of all, I would like to talk about what the empirical literature suggests about the results and impacts and effectiveness of entrepreneurship programs. And then, however, I would like to somehow invite you to some interaction as well. So we will talk or exchange a little bit about the challenges, the ways, the methods. Okay, empirical evidence shows basically that entrepreneurship programs can be nicely effective. They can foster entrepreneurial intentions, they can contribute to the higher business startup rates, they can also help people to get the idea to be self-employed. Definitely, in case they give capital, access to capital, they can improve better and provide better access to finance. And in case of very, very standard typical programs, they are also about improving skills and fostering creativity. If you work with young people and youngsters, both girls and boys, however, the same empiria also suggests that these positive impacts or positive results may vary very much. They may vary across time, they may vary across programs, and also they may vary across countries. These studies show also that some of these programs have produced some unintended consequences or unintended results. Basically, one of them could be that you are working with, for example, young Roma people. You have the idea what they could do as a self-employed, and you provide them with training with a skill set of that type of profession. But it might not be the case that they are the best in that profession. I can tell you this anecdotal story from Hungary, that we have a lot of programs targeting Roma young people, and they are providing courses about how to prepare a better dish, how to prepare a better basket. This is a little bit limited choice what they face when they can pick up such courses. And this is just the idea of the program designers that, you know, young Roma people in the northeastern corner of Hungary should be better carpenters or should be better, I don't know what, agricultural self-employed. It might be the case, but it might not be the case. So basically, all these programs are steering away them and their potential entrepreneur activities from those ones which could be much better competitive in their own local markets. Last but not least, also these studies suggest that actually all these nicely positive impacts can fade away sometimes very quickly. So even these program participants leaving the program might forget what they have learned about how to use an Excel file, how to calculate cash, incomes in the Excel file. They might remember it for half year, but if they don't use the Excel file, they don't have this constant exposure to use their digital skills, they might very easily forget them. Okay, so how to ensure the effectiveness then and the sustainability of these programs? This is just one of the illustration I brought to you from Edward Deming, who was an American businessman statistician, and I just like this quote very much. So I would suggest to keep this motto, to keep this quote as a motto for today's session as well, that we might have good intentions, we might trust whatever power we have that our program will deliver and achieve the goals we would like to achieve. But actually, we have to test that and see it by observation, so collecting data and looking at the data. That was his message to do. And basically, this is about adopting an evidence-based approach while you are both designing and implementing such entrepreneurship programs. Okay, may I invite now Helen, I guess, to help me out?
Yes. Okay. Can you see the poll now?
Want to answer?
Yeah, so my first question to all of you is, have you ever run an evaluation or impact assessment project? And in case yes, what was your need or kind of internal motivation to do that? In case no, please imagine what would be your hypothetical need or motivation behind. Helen, could you help me out with the orientation that the results will come up automatically?
Okay, I think you should see the results now.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. So it is good to see that the majority of you have already been part of such projects. And as far as I can see, yes, the relative majority is about proving that your program, the approach that you used applied in your program was effective. So it was worthy of funding was the most dominant answer. And some of them are into more about whether it was properly implemented, all the funding and money was used as planned, and the other one was about adequateness and appropriateness of the fund. It's good to know, because this is also something we're gonna talk about in the next rounds. So basically, there are different types of evaluations, different types of methods what you use while you do your evaluations, but all of them are about this proving adequacy, proving the appropriateness of your program, or proving the effectiveness of your program. Today, we have a very limited time. I also don't want to go and charge you with a lot of technicalities. So this is basically just a kind of sketching of a map of evaluation methodologies and evaluation approaches. And I will just highlight a couple of them, which I show here in this slide, for the sake of our time and also for the sake of hopeful exchange later on. Okay, the first one we had some answers in that category, proof that the donor's money was used and planned is definitely about collecting systematically, monitoring information. You collect information about what you do, you collect information what the program was producing, delivering, and you try to collect information about the performance of your participants. Proof that your approach is adequate and effective, it's a little bit more complex, and it requires more steps. There might be, and some of you, which we could have seen in the poll, have been already part of such projects. There might be evaluation projects, which are about that you prove that the way how you think your program will work, this is kind of how do you generate a change in the reality? You just test and check this intervention logic of your program. There could be a even more complex way of assessing the impact or evaluating the impact and the results of your program. Basically, these are these two kind of strategies, impact assessment or evaluation strategies, which I like to talk about a little bit in more details. Okay. Designing a monitoring system and collecting data might seem to be easy. Actually, in a lot of the cases, it can be done by the program managers themselves. But it's very, very important that the design and the use of those indicators are really very much well prepared and well thought out already in the program design phase and not just later on. I mean, if we progress with any type of mentoring or capital, giving access to capital or training, it is very much late if we just had the idea to know whether our participants are girls or boys, to know whether our participants have any other types of requirements or problems with the training, if the training was already done. So basically, it is very important that you just figure out what kind of data you collect in proper time already during the program design. If we talk about the theory of change-based approach of any evaluation, it is about what is the intervention logic of your program. I just brought you one graph to help you and help us to get to the same page. This is a hypothetical program, but basically I tried to figure and sketch here for you the kind of core elements of any entrepreneurship programs. Okay, the story starts with the observation that we have a lot of young people either sitting in the school or even leaving the school and then hanging out at the playgrounds in villages, or even not just hanging out, but they might have the idea, to visit the local public employment service and then register and try to find a job. So these are basically very in group sense, or they are our target groups. It is very definitely important to know that why they are out of school, why they have dropped out of school, why did they register but still didn't find a job. So one of the type of the programs goes on with the hypothesis that they might not have the skills, to find a job. This is exactly, I guess, how do you work with your programs? The question is what kind of skills? It is language skills. It is the lack of the skill to manage an Excel file. It is basically the lack of the skill to put together a nice CV. Basically, these are those problems or even their specific needs which you have to identify before you start any intervention or any implementation of your program. If you define these needs, let's say in this hypothetical case, we have a program which defined that basically the young people we have in target are missing some critical skills in their lives. They might miss language skills, English, they might miss digital skills, let's say nice browsing skills at the internet, whatever. You might have also identified as a lack that they might miss the mindset and the kind of patterns about how to do a business, how to run a business. So they might need help about improving their self-confidence, and also giving them examples of how business can be started, how self-employment goes on. So we might have the idea that you couple trainings with mentoring. I'm pretty sure many of you do the same. And the intervention is about giving them this access to improving skills, to changing their attitude, even improving their self-confidence via mentors, via trainings. And what you expect from that you have all the participants who enter the program with a course completed. You have all the participants entering the program with a mentoring finished. Actually, in the real life, I have never seen a program which worked like that. There is always a dropout rate. There are always things why young people are not interested anymore in your program. And I just say one anecdotal example, which we had in one of our evaluation projects. There was a program targeting actually young people, not in school, not in employment, need young people in rural areas of Hungary. They were giving trainings them. They also embedded a mentoring scheme into the program. They even provided access to capital. That was just one tiny point, which was not in the head of the designers, that basically those young people living in the north, in a village in the north of Hungary, do not have the money to go to the mentor who was sitting in the country center. That was this recognition pushed them to give them the opportunity. Okay, if you take the bus, the public bus to the country center to visit your mentor, that's fine. We will refinance this cost of you. Pretty much, they also modified the program. They allowed them to get an invoice from the bus driver, show it at the Public Employment Services, which was the manager of the whole program. And actually, then they hoped that even more young people in disadvantaged areas will get to their mentors. What happened in reality, and this is a story I will never forget, that one of those mentors told me that, Petra, could you imagine the situation that in a small village, early morning at 6 o'clock, 7 young Roma are standing at the bus, and each of the 7 young Roma boy is asking for an invoice from the bus driver. And definitely it is not feasible that 7 in the morning, the bus driver is giving out an invoice to each of the Roma kids, and each of the Roma kids has the patience, to go through all this administrative burden that was imposed on them during the program. So basically, this is something which is also part of design, that you have to try to imagine and simulate how people will get to their mentors. I have an opposite example for you. It is from Brazil, where they were targeting young people in the streets, so streets kids, and they also were providing the same program elements: training, mentoring, and capital. What they did differently is basically they took a mobile van and they put the mentors into the mobile van, and they went with the mentors with the mobile van to the places where those kids are. Obviously, the dropout rate in that program was definitely and significantly lower than the dropout rate in the case of the Hungarian program. Okay, all this intervention logic and everything that you just have in mind, it should be tested somehow and with the help. And this is something I guess many of you have done within the framework. We call it an ex-ante evaluation. And this is not about still collecting data or even just seeing how it performs, but it is more about that you validate the logic of your program with the help of past experiences, with the help of studies, analyzing similar programs with similar profile, and definitely with experts who have the knowledge of such kind of stories which I had just shared with you. Okay, at the end of the day, you hope that your entrepreneurship program will improve the skill set of the participants, improve their confidence, and definitely will push them or give them the best nudge, to start a business, so their probability to start a business will be much higher than before they entered the program. At the end of the day, basically, and this is why we call it theory of change, you would like to see those guys and girls not sitting at the playgrounds, not just hanging around the public employment services and looking for a job, but having the opportunity already, the chance to be self-employed or even starting a business. And basically, this is this logic which you would like to be realized during the implementation of your program. Okay, the second case, which is a bit more complicated, is counterfactual impact evaluation. In this case, you just try to provide this evidence to your sponsor, to your donor, that your program is not just well thought through, like this theory of change framework pretty much works and matches those needs and that context which you work in, but you also would like to provide evidence on the impact of those programs. And there are several methodologies how to do that. Actually, I just bring you here one, which is the ideal one. In many cases, this might not be applicable, but still I think it's good to use it as a benchmark, as an ideal benchmark. Okay, counterfactual impact evaluation is basically, again, a kind of simulation game. It is about what would have happened with your program participants if there would have not been a program, if there would have not been an intervention. And the component of a counterfactual is that you try to find the so-called control group, who are actually young people on average in all their characteristics, all their observable characteristics, very similar to your program participants. Based on observable characteristics, there is only one difference between the control group, indeed the youngster in the control group, and the youngsters in the intervention group. This is exactly the program participation. And then this whole methodology is about observing their performance during the program, very ideally following the program, and then comparing with statistical methods, the difference in their performance, the difference in their income, the difference in their employment status, the difference in the fact whether your program participants have a business as opposed to the others who have not. But should be noted, while we are planning to use such a methodology, is that basically impacts might be observable only with a delay. In many, many cases, even those ones which are touching upon more soft skills, these are hard to measure, but sometimes good to measure. And these need time to improve and need time. It is not just enough that you have a kid with a mentor for 4 months, and then you hope that the kid after the fourth month will already say that, I am so okay with running an interview with another adult. It is a building block which the mentorship or mentoring can provide to him, and it may take time that his self-confidence is much more robust. Also, impacts can be measured only with proper methods and definitely with appropriate and in many cases a lot of data. So you need a lot of data to do such counterfactuals. Okay, the impact, the magnitude of the impact can also depend on the time of the measurement. As I just indicate here in this very hypothetical graph, if you start to measure the impact of the program after the shortly after the beginning, it might end up, that the youngsters you are dealing with, they are just much more frustrated than they were before. So basically the performance, their skills might be even worse than those ones in the control group. So it is always very, very tricky to find the proper time when do you measure your expected income. And last but not least, the key question here is, it sounds theoretically very nice that you find your control group, but actually it is often very hard to find a control group. And this is my next slide. So how to find it? Ideally, you find it by an experimental design. But what do I mean by experimental design? So counterfactuals and counterfactual impact evaluations ideally are using randomized control trial. Randomized control trial is a way that, for example, you announce an entrepreneurship program at universities. You kind of fish together a kind of sample of potential participants, but you just not invite all of them into the program. You randomly select half of them into the program and not select for entry the other half. This is randomization. Why it is nice? Data statisticians, data scientists, and economists like randomize a lot. Why it is nice? It is nice because participants and non-participants are often different in case if you are not using random selection. So especially in entrepreneurship programs, there are also evidence about that those young people who are entering these programs usually might be much more motivated, much better informed, socially much better linked and connected, and better skilled. At the end of the day, it is not a surprise then that basically your entrepreneurship program might overestimate the positive impacts because you skim the cream. You just pick those people who are already much more open, much more creative, much more informed. It happens in a lot of cases. So one of the trick or one of the tool for that is exactly randomization. So inviting people and by randomization, basically eliminating this phenomenon, which we call selection bias. Okay, randomization also ensures that the composition of the participant group, the intervention group, and the control group might be the same. Randomization and random selection is usually the first best, but there might be some constraints. We will talk about them, why you may not be able to use randomization while you are starting off your program. The good news is there are alternative quasi-experimental statistical methods which can be still used. If I had today more time, I would go into details, but I will collect and put together a list of references and recommendations for you, readings, and then you can also come back to me to ask about all of them. I'm finishing with this slide. And this is just, as I said, a kind of appetizer. I was also curious about how many of you, and I am curious about how many of you have ever tried to make such experimentally design-based evaluations. If you had, you know, if you haven't, I will tell you no, that definitely there are challenges and concerns. I mean, in concept and in theory, it sounds everything great and fine. In reality, you might have difficulty, as we just suggested, to find a control group. There might be ethical concerns because using a control group, using randomization means that basically you exclude some potential candidates from the program. And one of the reasons or one of the solutions which is suggested by the Empiria is that basically you are using waves of entry and you just randomize first, and then whoever was coming into the control group, you still can invite them in the second wave. So there is a kind of lagged entry for those ones who have been not beneficiaries of the first wave. It might be very costly to collect data. Definitely, as I mentioned to you, it might be very costly if you just get the idea to have more information about the characteristics of your participants already during the implementation phase. So it is really, really important to start collecting data early on, and it helps. What helps you to do this is basically to think about evaluation and any type of impact assessment already during the program design, And even better if you just price it and put it into your budget design of the program. Okay, it can be very time consuming to collect data. The good news is here that basically there are many existing public databases, administrative databases, which you can link with your own database, which might be based on surveys or other types of data inputs. So there are also many good tricks about how you can save time and also time and sometimes save money. Not to run whole-scale surveys, but rather to use already existing data sets. And last but not least, definitely your agency, whatever it is, a private fund or a public agency, might lack the analytical capacity and capacity and might face definitely all of these measurement-based approaches, might also face very hard measurement problems. In this case, I have only one recommendation to you: come to people who are experienced, to experts who have experience in this, to my peers, and ask them for collaboration. I think I finish here because I'm just running over time. And also my last message is basically the two main messages of the whole Young Entrepreneurship Policy Academy. So this is just kind of repetition for you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Petra. It was a great summary of the reasons why evaluation is important, how to do it, and the challenges that people might face as they try to monitor and evaluate youth entrepreneurship policies. So we have a few minutes for any questions, if there's any questions from the audience or commentaries, reflections on what was just presented. Give a moment for anyone to raise their hand. Looks like it was a very clear presentation. So if a question comes up, feel free to put it in the chat. Thank you again, Petra. It was wonderful.
Thanks.
So now we're going to move to a different part of today's workshop, which is thinking about the YEPA as a whole. So looking back over the 2.5 years we've spent together on all of the different subjects that we've talked about, we're wanting to bring together what will become the YEPA legacy. So the European Commission and the OECD are working to create a document that will be a testament to what we've done together. So I'm going to share my screen now and quickly present what we have in mind for this YEPA legacy. So hopefully you can see the screen. So as I just mentioned, the idea is to bring together all of the different insights, discussions, presentations, all the reflections we've had across the YEPA activities, whether it was the in-person events, the conferences, or YEPA side events, whether it's the workshops or the interactions we've had with each other throughout. So this document will be highlighting the importance not only of the work that we've done, but also why we're doing this work, which is the renewed policy focus on youth entrepreneurship and supporting young people in pursuing business creation. It also will capture, like I said, the key insights and learnings from across the different conversations and discussions we've had, picking up on the topics way back in the beginning, like access to finance, social entrepreneurship, the role of coaches and mentors, as well as helping young people integrate into networks. We also covered themes like green entrepreneurship or young women entrepreneurs, picking up the diversity of young people today. And the hope is that this document will serve not only as a legacy, but as a tool for the continuity, advocacy, and future action by providing actionable policy pointers. So this would be a document that you could take back to your countries and use to show how things can be adapted and how youth entrepreneurship policy in the future can be made better. So the document itself will be a short action-oriented report, again, really focusing on these actionable policy pointers that have come out of our discussions, so the key takeaway messages and how to implement them. And we're going to do this as we've done throughout YEPA by engaging with you. It's really important to have all of the voices represented from across the different groups within the YEPA community. So we are hoping to hear from people from across the EU and OECD countries, from all of the different categories. So young entrepreneurs themselves, networks, support organizations, experts and practitioners, and of course, the policymakers. And coming together again to highlight the key messages, but come up with action steps that can be taken forward. And we're going to do this in 2 different steps. So the OECD will review all of the materials. We've been collecting them over the last 3 years. So we'll have all the presentations that you've shared with us, all of the policy examples and case studies, and the different questions and discussions we've had. So we're taking those all into consideration and we're putting it into a document that will then be shared with a steering group who will help guide the drafting of the priority messages based on all of this YEPA material. And we'll also be sharing this with all of you. So all YEPA participants will have the opportunity to share their feedback on the document ahead of its launch at the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Summit in Brussels in October. So this will be shared with you by email later this summer. A quick note on the steering group. So we're looking for a select group of YEPA participants. So it will be a small group, about 12 to 15 participants. And we're looking for, again, the diversity of the YEPA community. So we want to make sure that the group has people from different countries as well as the different profiles so that we're not hearing from only one country or only one type of YEPA participant. So we really want to engage as many people as possible to hear their voices and their ideas. If you're interested in joining the steering group, you can contact me by 30 June and we will note your interest and get back to you on whether or not you've been selected to participate. There are just 2 key things that we really would like you to think about before writing to us, which is if you're ready to engage in the discussion and help make this legacy meaningful and useful. And the second, probably very important with the summer holidays coming up, that you are available on 17 July for the steering group meeting, which will be an online meeting. So that's very important for you all to be available. So think about that. And then if you are interested, please reach out. We'll be happy to have you. So I'm going to pause here. Are there any questions on the steering group or the legacy document? Was everything clear? Looks like it. Okay, well then we will then go to our next part, which is a discussion group on the YEPA insights. So to start this process, we want to hear directly from you on what you think the overall key takeaway messages are of the YEPA. What have you experienced over the last 2.5 years through all the different events and discussions, and what stands out to you as something that can represent YEPA going forward and represent all of the work we've done together. So I'm going to put you into breakout groups to discuss these 3 questions. So the key takeaways. We also want to hear if your involvement in YEPA has shaped your understanding of the challenges or opportunities that young entrepreneurs are facing today. So we spent a lot of time in all of the workshops talking about barriers to entrepreneurship, how we can address them. And we've also talked about the opportunities, such as pursuing sustainable focused businesses, innovative or AI startups as well. So has YEPA shaped any of your reflections on that and how you're approaching youth entrepreneurship policy? And then the third, which is again the more action-oriented question, which is what broader lessons do you think should inform future youth entrepreneurship policy? So feeding into these action steps, what should we take forward and what should YEPA advocate for? So I'm going to stop sharing my slides, but I will put these into the chat so that we can discuss them in our breakout groups. I will then put you all back in. Wonderful. So we'll have about 30 minutes to discuss, and then we'll all come back together into the big group. So it'd be great if you could nominate 1 to 2 people to talk about the key messages you discussed in your breakout groups so that we can all hear and note it down together. So you should hopefully see an invitation to join. And I will see you back shortly. Welcome back, everyone. I think we've all made it from the breakout rooms to the main room. So we just have a few minutes before we wrap up today's session to discuss all together what some of the key topics and messages that came up in our breakout groups. So I know in my group, we had all sorts of different ideas for next steps and what to do going forward. We also came up with some really good key takeaways as well but I'll let the rapporteurs talk more. So perhaps I will go ahead and pass the floor to Elena and Elena, who will be doing this together for our group before we hear from the other one.
Yeah, with pleasure. So we had plenty of feedbacks. The first one was that it was a really good initiative to gather experts and actors to also see that there's a lot of resources and actors working towards the same challenges for young entrepreneurs. We also had the highlight that it's only the beginning of something, saying that it's now we've discussed a lot about some like analysis and what's happening and what we should do. But there's a reflection: there'll be a second YEPA in terms of action deployment, also by providing more practice and going further into the recommendations. Also, we discussed that no one has the magic form, quoting Sarah here, that we are plenty of actors doing things on that topic, but it's a complex challenge that needs a holistic approach with a structural system and a systemic vision, and meaning that we also need to implement a strategic plan that covers plenty of the topics and challenges we covered throughout the different YEPA session. Globally the sessions were really insightful, also maybe sometimes a bit hard to be only remote and online. There was the question if we could get a voice also to push it further to decision maker and to really see the impact of what we have been working on throughout those different sessions. Also, there's a need of showing the entrepreneurship variety. So we spoke about social entrepreneurship, but also tech entrepreneurship and all the different possibilities for young people. There were also the importance of education, developing throughout high school and college what we are saying about entrepreneurship, but also going deeper and further. And also, something that was highlighted is that we need more young people into those work groups because they are the key center of this topic, and also to have more storytelling of the pathways of those different entrepreneurs. And also that these OECD sessions were really organized with the platform, and it was easy to follow and to understand the different topics covered. And the importance of role models still. Elena, I don't know if you see many things to add or maybe I go
Yeah,
further.
I think you cover mostly everything what we discussed in the small groups. Just to highlight that, yeah, I think it's really important maybe keep the focus on that. I think we need to share awareness like regarding to these topics. Also the importance as education as a tool to post, no, these new generations that can have this mindset of entrepreneurship and show this wide range of ways to entrepreneur, like there's not just these big companies that we see sometimes on the TV and it's so difficult to reach them. I think to develop skills and have an entrepreneurial mindset is also important. And also keep attention into fundraising and money, also have the resources and, networks like this that can help you to create their own projects and business. So basically that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for so succinctly wrapping up everything we talked about. Now I'll pass the floor now to the other group, perhaps the rapporteur.
It was me. So yes, we took stock of this long journey of webinars, and indeed it's a moving moment. We had the end of it. So it was recognized as being an interesting series of events, and it gives a kind of a roadmap to follow for addressing all the barriers towards inclusive entrepreneurship, towards youth entrepreneurship. So the mapping of the points of attention is done. It helps policymakers to inform their policy. It helps stakeholders to know where are the points of attention. It was also a good surprise to see for some of us that besides or at the same level of entrepreneurship, you have also impact-driven entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship. That's also interesting. And it can also inspire those that are in teaching or universities to try to see how they could insert better this kind of reflection about youth entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship in general in the curricula. Now, what could so YEPA was good, but was useful. Now, what could it be after YEPA? What could have been ideally great, and then some proposed different angles. One was well, he would explain it better than me, but he said that it would have been super nice to build a dashboard of country by country of okay, how this country is scoring in terms of many things, but youth entrepreneurship. What are the programs available, and how you could reach to this program. So that's a kind of huge database to build. We didn't do that. It was not the ambition. We tried to animate the ecosystem, but not to map everything so easily. Although the Missing Entrepreneur report is a kind of mapping, and let's be honest, it's already an excellent basis. Others says, okay, YEPA should continue to live by itself, probably at national level, or yeah, that people that have bet there could continue and do national YEPA. Well, yeah, unfortunately, it will not be the European Commission to push that, but okay, of course, we could welcome that. Others says that the YEPA could be a kind of policy hub to assess new projects for youth entrepreneurship. This is very interesting. What we could say, Jonathan and I, is that we will have a nice legacy document really pointing to the things we have learned and the main message for youth entrepreneurship. For the future, we are not in a position to announce anything, but on the in-person event, in the summit, we will have panels or workshops to discuss exactly what could be new initiative for youth entrepreneurship at EU level. It doesn't mean that it will be bought by my commissioner, but at least we will have time to reflect. For instance, I don't know if you have heard about this project we financed, which was called Better Incubation, where we finance incubator to be more mindful about target groups. And it succeeds very well. And one of the target groups was youth entrepreneurship. Should we replicate that? Should we engage to building an index or a dashboard, as Fernando said? This is not set. We don't know. We have also to struggle for financing and budget. So, but at least we will have this moment in Brussels. I hope it will be sunny as today, and where we will all meet, listen to inspiring people, take the time to reflect on what could be useful in view of the constraints and budget we have. And hopefully this will continue. In any case, I think that the YEPA in itself has been useful. I've heard here and there that it has really helped some policymakers to make a case for youth entrepreneurship. It also helps us to put in policy documents, okay, youth entrepreneurship is not to forget, because at global level, we see that actually the economic difficulties are more today, and surprisingly more at the young side than the older side. So to put it bluntly, retired people are less poor than young people today. So really, we have to act and support youth. So this is part of the solution. Over to you, Ellen.
Well, wonderful. Well, it's 1 o'clock, so I don't want to keep everyone over. But I'd be remiss if I didn't thank all of you for your contributions today, but also over the course of the YEPA. It's been a pleasure to work with you and engage with you, hear your insights. So thank you on behalf of the YEPA team. I'd also like to thank our country co-host, Belgium, specifically Wallonia. Thank you, Werner and Frédéric, and all of our speakers today, Petra, Sarah, who's still here, and Rumen, who had to leave, but and Fernando. So sorry, Fernando. There you are. But thank you all, and it's been a great pleasure. If you have not registered for the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Summit, we've extended the deadline, so please do that by Monday. So you have today and Monday to get those in, and we will be in touch shortly with more information on the travel and accommodation, but we need to close the registration first. So please don't forget to do that, and thank you again for all of your contributions.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. See you.
See you, colleagues.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.